I'm delighted to welcome Hap Klopp. Hap is the founder and co-founder, really, of North Face, and you went on to become executive chairman of Obscura. You've been an advisor and mentor to many entrepreneurs around the world. Hap, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks, John. It's great to be here.
So, what I'm really interested in is how you think about leadership, particularly with young companies, when you've got founders who may not have had a lot of experience before coming out of a corporate world, and yet they're taking on, in many cases, huge obstacles, and some of them have extraordinary success. So what are the kind of the insights and secrets that you've observed over time?
Well, some of them are a little flip, but I try to keep them from being nervous.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the time, they aren't going to be making huge mistakes at the beginning. They're going to make lots of mistakes. Yeah. That's inevitable. And so if you encourage them to actually fail forward and take ideas and be able to develop them and not become so hidebound and not so locked in with their view, and recognize that they're going to replicate mistakes others have made, but also they're going to create new ones. And if they are open to listening to people, whether that's mentoring from me or from the people around them that they select themselves with, then they can solve things. So the first thing is to get them comfortable with the fact that they will make mistakes. And once they make those mistakes, it isn't the end of the world. Be able to gauge it, be able to bound it, to be able to limit the risk by limiting the amount of investment they're pursuing. That's the first thing. But if you're going to have fear, fear is a precursor of failure. You've got to have this audacity that, I am going to change the world, wanting to change the world. So always try to embolden that, but at the same time, let them know that just over the hill, there's going to be something you're going to run into that you've never anticipated. And it's how you react to the unanticipated that really makes the difference between a great leader and just somebody who's a manager.
So how do people who live in different cultures than, let's say, we have in Silicon Valley, how do they deal with the fact that their cultures don't necessarily accept failure as a process of learning?
Well, it's a fabulous question. One of the things I do is teach courses of people who come into Silicon Valley. I do with USF and also Hult University, but it's Silicon Valley immersion. And I always talk about, the secret sauce of Silicon Valley being failure, where it's allowed here to have failure. In fact, it's recognized as a badge of honor. And it just doesn't happen if you talk about New Zealand, where I've spent a bunch of time, or Ireland, or Egypt, or Innsbruck, where I taught. And you try to tell them you have to step back and be able to try to affect the culture around you. The reality is it's very difficult because the banks look at you differently if you're in one of those small countries. You're in New Zealand, they talk about the tall poppy being cut down. If you were somebody who had a fantastic success and failure, you'd never be able to participate again. So part of it is what I explain to them is you've got to be able to sell that. And maybe the easiest way is to explain to somebody, as I once did when I was explaining about financing. When you go to a bank at the start, or you go to investors, basically in the back of your mind that you're probably going to need more money than you're asking them for, but they would never give it to you at the first go-round. So what you do is you sort of tell them, if I'm really successful, I'm going to need more money. Well, whether you're really successful or you're having problems, you're going to need more money. But if you've already preset them up to look at it, that you're going to need more money, then when you come back to them, it isn't as frightening. And it's sort of the same way. If you tell them to work with their community and explain some of the things that may happen, so they're almost become a savant. They're explaining what the future is going to be. And from your own experiences, you can kind of see these things coming down the road. They don't happen overnight in most cases. You'd rather have them not happen, but you can sense what's going on. If you can tell people, okay, we're going to face this problem, and this problem we're going to overcome, then the people around you start believing in you, because they start believing you understand or that you can see the future. And they give you more credit than maybe you should have, but they start being able to be inside with you. If you keep everything closed and you don't talk about these things, when they actually happen, everybody is surprised. And when they're surprised, you have problems. So try to give them something to anticipate it. Now, can you talk to all the stakeholders when you're involved in some of these other countries? Harder, definitely harder. But you should talk with the critical ones. That would be anybody who's investing with you. That would be the banks that you're dealing with. And if you're dealing with the governments because your product or your service is involved with that, then you need to alert people to that.